I'm Larry Dreiling. I am originally from Aurora, Colorado, but moved to Hayes in 1976. My dad and mom went here, and I was convinced to come here. In my junior year of high school, I fell in love with the place. I have 2 bachelor's degrees, one in political science, emphasis in public administration, and the other in communication, emphasis in both journalism and radio, TV, film. And yes, I was the Tiger mascot. How I became mascot was in 1976, my freshman year. I was working at KFHS, the campus radio station. So one of the announcements on the campus came from the athletic department saying, anybody who's looking to try out for cheer or mascot, contact the secretary to the athletic director at the time, a guy by the name of Phil Wilson, and they'll set up an interview and tryouts and all the rest of this stuff. I was the news announcer, so I was doing the newscast, and across the glass from me was a girl named Kris Disney. And she said, you'd be a good mascot, Larry. You got to try out. We're going to sign you up. And I went, oh boy. So on a dare, I tried out to be the Tiger. So Phil Wilson offered me the position. I took it. We didn't have a suit. So all his thing was, we'll just put a head on you and you can wear the uniform of the player of that time, whether you're a football player, basketball player, or wrestler. I worked that summer to get myself in pretty good, decent shape. And we had a really good wrestling coach here at the time who was also our strength and conditioning coach by the name of Barry Allen. And Barry put me through a pretty rigorous training schedule that summer. And I got myself pretty fit. I was probably in the best shape of my life at that time. And so I was ready to go in and be a mascot. So they plopped this head on me that one of the local artists, Ken Ficken, took a football helmet and put a bunch of steel rods into it so that it would form a clay head around it, which was really good because most of these heads are foam. We had this clay head along with whatever the uniform of the day was. So I didn't have a suit. I tried to go to as many events as I could to try to support all the teams because it wasn't just to me just representing football or men's basketball. It was representing all the sports. And the nice thing was that they respected me as an athlete as well. And I was especially good with working with kids. So, I'd pick up the kids and I wouldn't talk to them, of course. Mascots don't talk. But you'd, get a photo with the kid and all the rest of the stuff. So really, I became a good public relations tool for the university. I had some crazy times. The cheerleaders were always fun. We had yell leaders at the time that were really good. We still had a men's gymnastics team. So these were guys who were from the men's gymnastics team. And they were real strong and they had great depth of being able to do stuff. So as a team, between the cheerleaders and myself, we had a great rapport. We worked out together and we always had a good time doing our stuff. The mid to late 70s was the most fantastic time to be a mascot because you had the growth of the San Diego famous chicken. You had the Philly fanatic. And then a lot of colleges started really turning their mascots into pure entertainers instead of just guys who stood on the sideline and cheered. We had a very intimate contact with these fans because we could do all kinds of different things. I stole from everybody. I stole from Fan Guy from the Mets. I stole from Sebastian the Ibis. I stole from the Chicken. I stole from everybody I could find that was entertaining. Because not everybody in Hayes, Kansas was studying up on mascots, but I did because that was my gig. Of course, this was the time when McGrath Hall had its famous Kazoo band. So I'd stand up there and conduct the Kazoo band. And so we got the crowd going and we tried to make it as party an atmosphere as we could for those 2 to 4 hours that kids would come to the game, especially the students. And it was very fun. I had my own style points, and every mascot, I think, brings their own style to mascotting. The mascot, of course, goes all the way back to the 1920s, and there is some amount of discussion about where the mascot came from. There is the coach who said he found an old World War I flying tiger seal, and he had them remade on all of the, made these patches for the players and said, we're going to go fight like tigers. And then you have the argument that William Alexander Lewis, who was president of the university, Lewis Field Stadium, who was a graduate of the University of Missouri, adopted his mascot, the Missouri Tigers, and turned it into the Fort Hays, Kansas State College Tigers. Through all of that, there were dozens of different mascot logos, suits, you name it, anything that depicted a tiger walking on two legs and carrying a banner that was a copycat basically from Kansas State University. There's the resting tiger, there's the pouncing tiger, there's the roaring tiger, there's all kinds of tigers. But there was never anything that really worked. The late 90s, early 2000s, I was on the board of the Fort Hays State Alumni Association, and I kept complaining we need to make sure that we have a singular image for the university. We never had anything in terms of a unified tiger. And I always kept screaming about it. And Ed Hammond, who was president at the time, and Tom Spicer, who was the athletic director, always said, we're going to figure this out. So we got to have a unified look. Mary Ridgway, who was the chief graphic designer for the university at the time, took what was one of the old roaring tiger looks and transmogrified him into what we see here, Victory. I have become very active in support of the university. I have a fund for athletics, and I always kick a little money to athletics every year. One specific thing is I always give to the mascot and make sure that he's got some funds to do what he needs to do or she needs to do. You know, I always say that Mary Ridgway was the mother of Victory Tiger. I'm the dad because I'm the one that paid the bills on it. So I went ahead and paid off the initial fees for the suit and have continued to support Victory and whatever needs that have come up over the years. I'm happy to do that because Victor is me and me is Victor. Anybody who's ever worn the suit will tell you the same. He's still very young, he's vibrant, and he'll be forever young as far as I'm concerned. That's 45 years since Kent built that head for me, and I borrowed a bunch of old uniforms out of the equipment base, and now she is still looking real sharp, and Victor is always going to be forever young to me.